All right, everyone, it's time for the occult video number 410, Witch's Butter and Other Nature Folklore. This is a topic that I'm extremely interested in. I wanted to start off, though, with witch's butter. It's a type of fungus, actually. It grows on rotting wood, generally speaking. And it's sort of a gelatinous, yellow, kind of mushy-looking cluster of mushrooms. There's a shit ton of it on this property, by the way. I laid out logs actually years ago in order to delineate sort of where you would have paths in the wood lot and where the actual trees would grow. And of course, over time they rot. Well, they're covered in witch's butter. Back hundreds and hundreds of years ago, if witch's butter was growing on your property, they could literally declare you to be a witch or a warlock and persecute you as a result of this. I gladly take up that mantle, by the way. These days, of course, they don't behead you for practicing magic. In most countries, anyway. But yeah, there's a bunch of it. And this year, I think that we're going to be flush based on the amount of rain that we've been getting this spring. I have a feeling this is going to be a good year for mushrooming. Can't wait till about September. It's going to be amazing. I mean, I'm going to go and eat bolitas and stuff like that. Yeah, the first legend was that if witch's butter was growing on your property, it could be evidence that you were actually a witch or something like that. So I'm assuming that people attempted to destroy it if it was growing on their property, if they happened to be within a certain, certainly religious community or something like that. There's another legend. This one deals with parsley, actually. Parsley, which is delicious, of course, but was in some cases shunned. They believed that its roots extended down into hell. That was the legend. I'm assuming that most sane people understood that that's not actually what was happening, but it was something that was reckoned anyway. There are so many tales of fungal and herbal folklore uh, within the natural world that it would be impossible to actually fully cover them all in a lifetime. You have, of course, herbal medicine, as well. And herbal medicine is something that, as I spoke of yesterday, even chimpanzees roughly are capable of understanding. They're capable of using various poultices and things like that. Effectively, they're practicing what primitive humans would have called a form of magic, which is interesting. Magical chimpanzees, imagine that. It's actually fascinating when you think about it. All sorts of weird stuff. For instance, when we look at alchemy, um, the use of various herbs and so forth, and sometimes is metaphorical, sometimes is chemical. It's not always entirely clear which one you're dealing with, by the way. Alchemy is a very, very strange subject. It's effectively you're dealing with proto-chemistry, but in some cases it's biological in nature. We have illuminated manuscripts and so forth that deal with the basic topic, but then they appear to be actually herbals more than anything else. And we've got to realize, of course, with regards to medicine specifically, that the rise of what we would call at least semi-standardized medicine begins with organic medicine, not inorganic medicine. That comes later. That comes at the dawn of the 20th century, generally speaking. Up until then, you have 100 years of organic medicine. Seemed to work, by the way, at the time. People have forgotten a lot of that lore, by the way. You have also, for example, creeper vines. I can't remember the exact species name, not the Virginia creeper, but a different variety. Sometimes people would plant it. This is a Southern tradition and an African tradition as well. They would plant it outside of their door. And the idea was that if the devil tried to come through into your home, he would trip on the creepers. This has an additional sort of folkloric aspect. It appears to be based on the story that when Satan first fell to earth, that he fell into a patch of brambles, effectively. So you even have that lore literally in Christian tradition as well. And so, you'd plant brambles and vines outside of your home, and it would guard you against the devil, effectively. It would guard you against the devil entering your home and bewitching you or, doing other crazy things that the devil supposedly does. Does. I assure you that we don't. Um, witch's butter is probably the most fascinating, though, because of its connotation with regards to literal persecution. It appears that the origin of this is probably that older women who were skilled in herbal lore and especially dispensing abortifacients, they tended to live on the fringes of society. They did not tend to live in cities. Of course, if you're living out in nature, you can harvest the materials, the herbal materials you need for healing or harming more easily. So you don't want to live in an apartment, for example. That would be a little bit more difficult if you happen to do abortifacients and midwifery and stuff like that. And so the idea was that these women were practicing evil spells and so forth. And so, because witch's butter would generally be prevalent in such a clime, because there's going to be fallen wood that's rotting and stuff like that, it was just a way of selectively persecuting people, actually. This is my personal hypothesis. Um, not in all cases. By the way, there was a difference between Catholic and Protestant countries. Around the time of this kind of persecution, there was actually a big difference between how they were treated. After King James, in Protestant countries, you typically got much more persecution. Any form of herbal medicine could be reckoned to be evil magic, and therefore you'd be persecuted for it. Again, selective persecution. If you were in good with the local magistrate, there's no problem. If you were in bad with the local magistrate, the fact that that mushroom is growing on the log next to your home is evidence that you're practicing evil spells, you will now die. In Catholic countries, there was actually an understanding that white magic existed. The whole concept of the difference between dark magic, gray magic, white magic, and so forth develops there effectively. And so in the Catholic countries, generally speaking, the idea was, if you're using spells to kill people or something like that, or drive off the cattle, well, we're going to go after you. But if your magic is only holy in nature, so, your spells invoke our God and stuff like that, then they were generally left alone. It's interesting to see the differentiation between the two. I would note that in Islamic countries, you have a similar differentiation. In certain Islamic traditions, any form of magic is effectively blasphemy. In other countries, it was generally tolerated, including even black magic. For example, there's a tradition in Turkey about taking a piece of the Quran and cutting it out and putting it in a person's belongings, and it would curse them or something like that. But that has nothing to do with fungus and herbs and stuff like that. There are all sorts of herbal traditions. Normally, they're healing related. Normally, you don't get, I mean, you do get black magic with regards to herbs. And I realize one group of fairly modern religious people that I actually respect more are hedge Wiccans. A hedge Wiccan or a green Wiccan. Uh, I mean, I know that Wicca is not an authentic tradition, but, bear with me for a moment. The idea of surrounding yourself with stringers of dried herbs and big garden and stuff like that is actually quite appealing. I mean, if I couldn't be what I am now, I guess I'd have to be a hedge Wiccan and sell crystals at a local shop or something like that. Fascinating topic altogether. And by the way, witch's butter apparently is edible, but I don't know why you would want to eat it. It doesn't look very appealing to me. It's like this gelatinous yellow encrustation on rotting wood. Maybe I'll try it sometime. I'm not 100% sure. And of course, anywhere where there are a plethora of mushrooms, just look at fairy ring mushrooms. They're called fairy ring for a reason. Naturally, you're going to have magical claims. I've tried fairy ring mushrooms. I ate them raw though, so they taste a little bit like an oyster mushroom. I'm thinking if you sauteed them up, they'd actually be pretty damn good. That's about all. Peace out.